Hi, I'm Aaron Marcus, and welcome back to the Acting and Modeling Success Summit. We have a special guest with us. His name is Brandon Ellis. And Brandon is an actor, singer, musician working in New York City. He graduated with a BFA in acting from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, as you can see by his shirt, in 2005. And he made his Broadway debut in the Tony Award-winning 2006 revival of Company. Today, Brandon is on Broadway in the Tony Award-winning production of Once, which is really incredible. Brandon is also, you ready for this? He's also a competitive fighter, and he's proud to train at Chang's Hapkido Academy. Hey, Brandon, thank you so much for being a part of the summit today.
My pleasure.
So, what millions of people are always wondering, you went to school in North Carolina, you decided to go to New York, certainly you knew that you were a singer. What was the first step that you took in trying to get involved in the New York City acting scene?
Well, thankfully, my college had a showcase, which I think is, when you're picking a school, one of the most important things is to have a college with a showcase. And
Actually, would you
so,
just explain exactly what a showcase means for everybody?
yeah, basically, when I got to my senior year of college, we prepared scenes, and myself, I prepared some songs, and my college rented out a theater, and they invited agents and casting directors to come and see us before we graduated. So before I graduated, I had an agent already. An agent signed me out of that showcase, and so he was really lit a fire under me to move to New York and to get here quicker and start auditioning. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have been up here in time to audition for Company. He had me fly up to do final callbacks for Sweeney Todd, and those people in Sweeney Todd remembered me. They didn't cast me in Sweeney because there wasn't a place for me, but they remembered me, and then they called me back for Company, and I booked it.
That's one of the incredible things I think is really important for actors to understand is that, getting the audition, I mean, that's the amazing part. I mean, whether you book it or not, I mean, that stuff is out of your control. But
Yeah.
when you do a great audition, you are remembered. And
Hmm.
so that's just like a perfect example of you did an audition and you wound up not getting that part, but you wound up getting a job later on with the same people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's definitely important, I think, to just remember as an actor that our day job, a lot of people say I'm a waiter, I'm a whatever. Our day job is auditioning, and so it's our job to go in and give a good audition. And no matter what, if you go in and you kick ass, you're gonna walk away smelling like roses. So
yeah, whether you get the job or not. And that is the important part of doing a great job at the audition. Now,
yeah.
when you are getting ready to audition, and actually let's just talk specifically about Broadway because I mean that's anybody who's done theater, I mean that's the dream. I mean to be able to do Broadway is the mecca for anybody who's interested in theater. So, when you were getting prepared to audition for any kind of Broadway piece, what exactly do you do as a way of getting ready for it?
Uh, it's an extreme amount of preparation. I mean, if I I usually go to several vocal coachings. I'm always off book for my first audition, whether I got it the day before or not. I always memorize it. Even I go in and I still hold it in my hand so I don't look cocky, but I always memorize. Um, Score the scene, make sure you know all your actions and objectives, and I always go and see an acting coach. That's another thing. A lot of people, they graduate from school and they forget that it's a continuing education thing. You got to keep your chops up. It's just like, playing football or anything. You got to practice and keep your body in shape. You got to keep your acting chops and your singing chops in shape. So I go vocal coaching. I go to an acting coaching or more if I have the time. If it's an accent, I hire a dialect coach, and then I spend I don't know, 6 hours a day until the day of the audition. You know, at least looking over stuff. I don't do it all at once. so I don't burn myself out, but I'll spend an hour, go grab some food, do another hour, go hit the gym, go to work, look at it at my break at work, come back home, look at it before I go to sleep. I spend a lot of time. For I Some people, in order to be free to make interesting choices in auditions, need to not be too prepared. For me, that doesn't work. I need to be hyper, hyper, hyper prepared in order to feel relaxed in an audition.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that as well because like there are many different methods, there are many different philosophies of how to prepare, and it's kind of like even with music, there everybody has different techniques for things. What ultimately
Hmm.
matters is what's the final version, what's the product that comes
Hmm.
out, and no matter how you get there, it really doesn't matter, and whatever works for you is the important thing. So when
Yeah.
you actually walk in, well, actually, maybe you could just kind of walk us through that process. You've got a specific. Do you have a specific time to audition? Is it like with a SAG-AFTRA audition where there's a very specific time slot, or is it between the hours of and then you show up?
No, it's always pretty specific. Um, they almost always are behind, but they I'll have a time like 12:30. So I usually show up at 12 or 11:30, and I'll rent a studio in whatever building the audition is in. Um, and that's not that expensive, maybe $15. And you rent that for the hour, and I go in there and I warm up and go over my stuff that I'm gonna do and get myself prepared so that I don't just walk into the building and sit down outside the room and get myself nervous waiting.
And also, you separate yourself from everybody else in the room who sometimes
Yeah,
can do a lot of crazy things while you're trying to get prepared.
yeah. I don't like to sit around and compare myself to people. So,
Or talk about
yeah,
your most recent projects and how you're going to be traveling
yeah,
around the world. Okay, so
yeah.
so now you're physically, you're mentally prepared. You go back in, and then you're called. So you walk in.
Hmm.
Now, do you have, because I'm not sure how that works, do you have sheet music, or are you doing something specifically for that play?
It depends. Usually, these days, it's pretty common for someone to, if it's a new musical, they'll send me something to prepare from the show, and they'll also say, bring your book of music, which is just a book of songs that you put together over the years that you enjoy singing, and they'll sometimes they ask for something from the book, and sometimes they don't. They usually always ask for something from the show if they have asked you to prepare it, and then there are sometimes you'll show up for something where they'll just say, sing something you love. We just want to we just want to see you do something you love doing. Um, and so you want to have your book full of stuff that you love doing. If there's a bunch of stuff in there that you're kind of tired of, then take it out of there. You don't want them to see you do something you're tired of.
And so do you just walk over and hand it to the accompanist?
Hmm. You just go over to the accompanist and uh, just have them take a look at the time signature and say you do it about this fast, and I'm going to need a starting pitch or just roll a chord to start, um, and then say, follow me at this time change, and just point out the things that they may or may not know, and remember to always be like super super nice to your accompanist because they can sink you. They can sink your audition if they don't like you.
So when you are auditioning in that situation, about how many people are actually sitting in the theater?
Well, it's usually held at some studio, like Ripley Greer or Pearl or something in New York. There's a bunch of kind of go-to places to have
Oh, so you're
auditions.
not actually in the theater at that point.
No, very rarely. I've never auditioned in the theater for anything.
Okay, so in those situations, because those are pretty small rooms, then you're talking about somebody sitting behind a little table and there might be two or three people.
Well, it depends. In your first audition, it's probably going to be one or two people. It's probably going to be some kind of pre-screen if we're talking a Broadway show.
And
Um,
and who are those people? There's a casting director and
Yeah, your first audition, if it's a pre-screen for a Broadway show, it'll probably be a casting associate or an intern that has been told, look for these specific things, and if they have those, then pass them through. and then you'll get to the next person, which is the casting director, and then that casting director will decide whether or not you get passed on to see the creative team. And then if you get passed on to see the creative team, then you'll go in front of the director and probably the music director. And then if they decide that you're going to get cut down to the final, however many, 2 or 3 people they want to see for the part, then your last audition, I've had as many as 20, 23 people in the room, because they'll bring in producers, choreographers, line producer. There's so many people in the room because all of them have a say. People that put tons of money in the show, they want to be able to say, we like that guy. And then, a director ultimately has creative control, but if someone's given the show, $5 million and they say, I want to have a say on who gets cast, then they're going to say, all right, that's fine.
And so how many auditions could you actually go through? You were talking about different days, correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you could have 4 or 5
Oh,
auditions
yeah.
easily?
Oh, easy, yeah. I think I had like 7 for once. It was a very long process.
Wow, that must be tough because your life is just up in the air, and you
Hmm.
know that if you book it, your life is going to change pretty
Hmm.
dramatically, and so you're
Yeah.
probably trying to juggle a lot of things at one time, making sure you're always available for the callbacks
Yeah.
as well. Okay, so you find out through your agent that you booked the job.
Yeah, usually if you went through an agent for the job, then yeah, they'll call your agent with an offer, and then you decide whether or not you want to take it, and or whether or not you want to negotiate. If it's your first Broadway show, then you just say yes. You're not going to negotiate. But after you've done 2 or 3 Broadway shows, then sometimes you can negotiate a little bit if there's some things that are important to you to get into your
And
contract.
and I'm
But
just kind of curious. I mean, would you say to your agent, and I'm not even talking specifically you or in a specific, but in general, could you imagine somebody saying to the agent, hey, look, I want this gig. Do not lose it for me. Definitely negotiate. I definitely would like to get more money for this, but I want to make sure do not lose this job for me. And then let the agent kind of do their thing.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you just kind of you gotta trust your agent, which is important because a lot of agents aren't trustworthy. Sorry, guys, if any of you guys are getting interviewed on here, sorry, but I mean, like a lot of agents they're gonna take their 10% and they're not gonna do anything for you. So, you gotta when you pick an agent, you gotta make sure you pick one that you get a good vibe from, and they are going to represent you. They are your representation. So, Disney doesn't let their actors go out and get do a bunch of coke and then get on TV about being drug addicts, and just like that, you don't want an agent representing you to be a jerk or lazy or whatever, because
Right.
that reflects poorly on you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a relationship, and
Yeah,
that's why it's really important not to jump for the first offer and make sure this is somebody you trust implicitly
yeah.
because, yeah, I mean, this is your livelihood. So, okay, so you book the job, and then the next step is is it a rehearsal or is it just a meeting with everybody? What happens next?
Yeah, I'd say the once again, if you're talking for a Broadway show, then you usually show up and you'll kind of meet everybody, and there'll be some kind of meet and greet where you just introduce yourself to the director and the choreographer, the music director and the assistant music director and the assistant director and stage management team, and probably some of the producers, maybe the writers, uh, and and then after that you'll go on to your first rehearsal.
So you don't necessarily meet all the other actors in that first meeting?
Yeah, they're usually there, unless you're working with celebrities who only show up at certain times.
Okay, so now you're in rehearsal, and I realize it's going to vary once again from project to project, but any just to give people a general idea, how much rehearsal time is there before you actually go live?
It depends on the job. Like you said, for a new Broadway show, usually if you're in the original company, you'll probably get 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks of rehearsal if you're lucky. and then you'll go into previews. And during previews, you're still having rehearsals, but you're also performing for the public, but no press is invited. Um, and then when you get out of previews, that's when press is invited and they're allowed to review the show.
And for the rehearsals, how many hours a day are you talking about?
It depends. It's usually an 8-hour day. You'll start rehearsal at 10, you'll get done by 6, and you'll get an hour for dinner. Um, then you go in when it's in tech. Then you go into 10 out of 12s, and then it's 10-hour day. It's a 12-hour day, but you get an hour for lunch and an hour for dinner. Those days
And
are
would you
really long.
just explain what tech means as well?
Yeah, tech is just when you're ironing out all the lighting, set pieces that move, making sure everybody knows where they need to be lit if there's some interesting stuff going on. And they go cue to cue, which means here's cue one. Let's make sure everything's set for that. Does everybody know what they're doing? Great. Let's go to cue two. And there can be as many as 1,000 cues in a show, so it can take a long time.
Wow. Okay, so now you've gone through all of that, and now production is happening. You are performing, live for audiences. What is life like at that point? I mean, I know you've got matinees. Well, you're dark on Mondays.
Yep, we do 8 shows a week. So you're dark on, I mean, just it varies show to show, but for my show, we're dark on Mondays, and then one show Tuesday, 2 shows Wednesday, one show Thursday, but we also have understudy rehearsal during the day on Thursday, one show Friday, 2 shows Saturday, and one show Sunday.
And so when you have one show, let's say like for instance on Tuesday, what time does the show start?
Tuesday the show starts at 7, so I have to be there at 6.
Really, only an hour ahead of time.
Yeah. Actually, I'm only required to be there a half hour ahead of time, but for our show, because there's a pre-show, we have to be there an hour ahead of time, a half hour before the pre-show.
And in the pre-show, is that performing for the audience in some capacity?
Yeah, for our show, the pre-show is, our show's a lot about, um, you know, getting like a family feel, an all-inclusive feel like an Irish pub would be. So our
Right.
pre-show is we all come out on stage and we jam on Irish and folk, Irish and Czech folk songs, and the audience is invited to come up on stage and hang out with us and drink some beers, and then when, yeah,
Real beers?
yeah, yeah, it's a functioning bar.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the stage managers will when the pre-show is about to end, the stage managers clear all the audience off the stage, send them back to their seats, and then we start the show.
That sounds incredible. And then the show runs from 7 till when?
It depends. With our show, it's about 2.5 hours, including the intermission. So
That's a
first act,
long.
it's relatively long. First act's about an hour 15. Then there's a 15-minute intermission, and the second act is about an hour.
So by the time you are out of costume, makeup, what time do you actually leave the theater?
Uh, well, for what, just to clarify this, most of the time on Broadway, men do not wear makeup. So
No
I don't
makeup
take
at
any
all?
makeup. Not for men. Women,
Really?
but not for men. Yeah, unless you're doing like Phantom of the Opera or something like that. But I've never had to wear makeup on stage before on Broadway. Um, yeah, that's kind of a misconception. I mean, it depends. If you're doing a stylized piece of theater, then sometimes they'll wear makeup. Or like if I don't know, if they want to make you look a little older or make you look a little younger. But if I don't wear any makeup in the show. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, by the time I like on a Tuesday, I get home 9:30, 10 o'clock, depending
And
on.
so at that point, I mean, I'm sure you're not going to sleep at that point because you just got off of work. You're pretty
Right.
wired up. So during the day, I'm sure you're not, waking up at the crack of dawn. So during the day, how do you spend your days? Since you don't have to be at work until, much later in the evening.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually a personal trainer, so I still work during the day sometimes, and I also I work out, go to the gym because that's an important part of being an actor, your body is your instrument, so you got to maintain it. And so I work out probably 5 days a week, um, and I still take class once or twice a week. Um, Mostly right now, I take mostly film and TV stuff, but uh, it depends on whatever's going on. I just want to make sure to keep maintaining my chops and doing different things and making sure everybody knows who I am. And so
Now,
that's
I know that, excuse me, I know you've done like a number of films and some TV as well. While you're
mhm.
on Broadway, though, does that pretty much cut out those types of jobs while you are, still running?
No. Usually you can get if it's if it's a like a 1 day shoot, you can usually get the ask for the day off and get it. If it's if you book a couple of days, you can request it. I mean, they have the right to say no, you can't do that, but usually they won't. That's what understudies are for. Um, and then if me personally, my contract says that if I book a lead in anything, that I can leave if I want to. So if I booked a series regular or the lead in a feature film somehow, then I'd give them 4 week notice, and as long as I give them 4 weeks, then I can go.
Well, that's why you have a great agent. Hey, listen, I'm going to have to wind this part up because we have a bunch of questions that I want to get to you as well. Um, this is a question from Arlen in Boston, who wants to know, can anyone audition for a Broadway play, or do you have to go through an agent or already be in the union?
uh, Anyone can audition for a Broadway play. It is hard to get seen. If you are not in the union and you don't have an agent, then you have to go to what's we they have required equity principal auditions and equity chorus calls, which is basically they hold auditions for people that couldn't or didn't get appointments for the show through their agent. If you're not in the union, then you have to get up and go really early and go on the alternate list and hope that you get seen, but they don't have to see you. But you can try. And before I was in the union, I succeeded at getting seen several times. You just got to get up at 5 a.m., be there, be there by 7, be the first person to sign up on the alternate list, and then you might be waiting there for 6, 7 hours before they see you. Uh, and it's exhausting, which is why you want to get in the union as soon as possible. Now, if you get in the union but you don't have an agent, then you can go to the equity principal audition or equity chorus call, and as long as you're there by 10, whenever the list opens, then you can probably get in line and get an appointment at some point during the day. And they are required to see any equity person that shows up and shows up at the time that the list opens and gets an appointment.
Oh, that's
So
great.
yeah.
Um, got a question here from Justine in Ireland, who wants to know, does being on Broadway open up doors for you in TV and film?
A little bit. The good thing about it is that it gives you some street cred, kind of. Um, and you can invite, like, let's say I really want to be on Blue Bloods, but I can't get an audition for Blue Bloods because I don't have much TV and film on my resume. Then I can call the casting office or send them an email and say, hey, I'm an actor, I'm in once. I'll buy you a ticket if you'll come and see me in the show. And then if they come and see you and you do a good job, then the next time your agent asks, will you see Justine for an audition, then they probably will because they will have had a relationship with you.
Hey, and just so you know, Blue Bloods, man, you have to travel very far to audition for that show. It's not in the city like all the other places. I remember going out there one time and oh
Yeah,
man, you switch subways and oh, it's a hassle. It really is. But
yeah,
hope you get on the show. I
yeah,
didn't get the one audition, but it's a little bit of a hike. Hey,
yeah.
from Marion in New Mexico, is there much time for anything else in your life when you are on Broadway?
It takes up a lot of time because you have to be available to do press events and stuff. But yeah, I still have a fair amount of time. I still work as a personal trainer some because I enjoy it, and I still take class. I'm busy, but personally, I kind of thrive on being busy. I don't like sitting around, so I like it.
Well, one thing, and we were talking about this earlier, when I mentioned in your little introduction about you also being a fighter, that you said that you had to kind of postpone that for a while because you certainly can't be destroying your face or your hands while you're doing this. Once
Yeah,
Broadway is over, are you going to go back to fighting at all?
I don't know. Right now, things are going pretty good, and certainly with this show, um, I did that for a long time. I enjoyed it a lot, and I still train that way to stay in shape. But I can't, being a musician, and now people know that I can do that, and they will hire me for that. And now that I'm starting to do more TV stuff, I can't really break fingers and noses anymore.
Or other people's? Might weigh on you during the
Yeah.
middle of a performance. Hey, I've got one more question that I'm trying to squeeze in here. This is from Joey in Montana. And he says, I know this might sound silly, but since you're on Broadway, do you actually get discounts to see other Broadway plays or get free tickets?
Actually, yeah.
Oh,
I
really?
don't, we don't, yeah, we don't really get discounts, but when a new show opens, they will usually give every cast on Broadway, the actors in the cast, they'll give everyone a ticket because during previews, you want uh, friendly people in the house. You want theater people and actors that are going to come and they want to support you. So they invite us to come and watch them while they're still developing the show during previews, so that they know they have a supportive audience that that wants them to succeed. It brings a lot of positive energy. So they give us. I usually, if a new show is opening, I usually can get to see it for free.
Wow. Well, Joey, that wasn't such a silly question after all.
Yeah, not
Hey,
at all.
Brandon. Hey, I wanted to thank you so much. I know your life is very busy. Hey, for people who would like to learn more about you, get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
The best way, it's still a work in progress, getting up and running. I got to hire a webmaster, but you can check out brandonellis.com. That is a up and coming website, and I'll put an email up there, and you can email the website and stuff like that.
Well, listen, I just wanted to thank you so much. I really appreciate you being part of the summit and want to wish you all the best. I hope this show runs for as long as you want it to run and
Me too.
continue to get the gigs that you want to get as well. Really, you're a nice guy, and I remember when we met in New York a couple of years ago, you're really a very special guy. I really appreciate it, man. So
Hey,
thank
thanks
you
a
so
lot.
much. Hey, we're going to take just a couple of minute break here, and then we're going to come back. If you do have any additional questions, I'm going to be sticking around at the end of the summit, and I'll just continue to answer questions that we simply couldn't get to right now. So anyhow, Marin Marcus, Brandon, thank you so much again, man.
Thanks a lot.